Defender for Cloud. We're going to talk about some of the challenges, which I kind of have up here now. And we're going to do some other things. But if you have questions, please type them in chat. My partner in crime, Tom, will be happy to answer those as we go through. So, we all know we face security challenges. It's a trying world we live in right now, geopolitically, COVID politically, however you want to look at it. And then we still have the bad guys out there that still are doing the same old thing that they were doing, only better, right? We all know that. One of the challenges we all face is visibility into the security and compliance of our organization. So it's a huge challenge. Without all of those controls in place, 68% of breaches take months or longer to discover. I have been in some organizations that have MSPs that manage certain products where their SIM wasn't getting a data feed, and they really didn't let the customer have console access and things like that. And those present challenges because in one of the organizations I was in, there was a breach that was detected by that device, and it went months until they finally did lateral movement through the network, and it was picked up by something the customer did see. And then trying to backtrace all of that gets really difficult. Trying to do forensics gets difficult. In 2019, I know we're in 2021, but we saw a 95% increase in the cost on the average cost of a breach. It went up to about $5.16 million. That's a lot of money. And that is directly related to in the time it took to respond to that threat, that incident, whatever you want to call it. There have been drastic increases in the number and sophistication of attacks. Phishing emails have probably gone up at least 500% in the last 5 years. If you've been paying attention to the news lately, on Monday, I just read an article that distributed denial of service is now being used as a ransomware technique. Hey, we're going to continue to DDoS you until you pay us money. That's a whole method shift in what we've seen over the last 5 years. Usually DDoS is something we just don't like you, we're going to take you down, or we just want to mess with you. Gibson Research Corporation, he does a whole thing about how he was attacked with a DDoS attack, because he called someone a script kiddie. If you haven't read it, grc.com, you can look up Steve Gibson, but it's kind of cool and what he did. But there were 12 billion cloud activities inspected, monitored, and controlled in 2019 by Microsoft. Now, you're saying, wait, Mark, I came here for cloud security. I came here for Defender for cloud. So why are we going to have a zero trust conversation? Because it's important to understand the new methodology, really the new framework for securing a cloud infrastructure, for securing really any infrastructure. We all know IT security is really complex and very expensive. Most of us have been doing this for years. And we have many devices, we have many users, multiple different connections, and we continue to get more product, more devices, and we layer those on top of each other. That's really expensive. It's complex. We have to keep up. We have all these multiple different consoles to deal with. We traditionally, way back in the day, we started with what are called trusted network security strategy, also known as defense in depth. It's still a valid methodology. We still layer defenses, but we all know we get breached. It worked for traditional on-prem resources. We trusted a little more on the backside of the firewall than we did on the internet-facing side of the firewall. But the majority of attacks 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago were usually network-based on the initial attack. They seemingly simple technology that we used, and it seemed economical at the time, but it really isn't over time. I've been around in the business a very long time. I remember when there weren't too many options for firewalls. I remember when WebSense was invented and I had to install it on a network at the Subaru Telescope project on top of Mauna Kea, Hawaii. It was all new. Now we have multitudes of different firewalls, all claiming to be the best in class. We have multitudes of different proxy type devices to inspect the web. How simple is that? How economical is that? Then we had strategies like defense in depth, but we layered on a strategy basically of, well, if nobody knows who I am, they're not going to attack me. Right? We started thinking that way. And we started using multiple different products of the same breed so that if they broke one, we would detect them with the other. So I use one product as my antivirus on the gateway, but I use a different endpoint product, right? Security through obscurity, right? Everybody remember that? Okay, well, that kind of worked. But now we have all of these different things that leave the network, right? How many people are on-prem? Well, we had COVID, that kind of put everybody mobile. We have bring your own device, we have mobile, SaaS, all of that. It's not so simple anymore. Identity has actually become the new border. And that's what we're looking at here. Identity, all of that, because that's what people want. Attackers have shifted their methodology. That's why we saw the increase, and we still see increases in phishing and credential theft. Because if I have an identity, it's easier for me to move around laterally inside your network. The other thing is security teams are overwhelmed. If you even have a security team, what if you're a smaller business? You know, you're the domain admin, you're the cloud admin, you're the security guy, the network guy, but you still have to analyze all those logs. You still have to enforce all those policies that were written by your CISO. How do you do that? Understanding how to build the framework of zero trust can really help you. Zero trust is a strategy to increase security assurance for business assets, applications, data, network, identity, devices, all of those things. And it includes public and untrusted networks. And it's going to lead to policy-driven access to the architecture for that productivity environment. We're going to explicitly validate trust of access requests. So we're going to say, are you really who you say you are, right? The old term for that was non-repudiation. That term went away very quickly in the IT world. Dynamically address insufficient trust. Okay, so I'm not really sure the IP address that you're coming from. I've never seen you use that IP before, Mark. So I want you to authenticate again with something else. Or I want you to change your password. I can enforce that. I don't recognize you're a risk now. What do I do to ensure you're not a risk? I send you an MFA request, a token, whatever that might be. But it also helps modernize security operations, SecOps. Pervasive detection and response. We're going to get visibility inside and outside that firewall. Rapid remediation with automation and integrated workflows. We're going to be dynamically addressing these issues. What about my operational technology, my data center? Monitor and segment assets based on their risk, their business risk. We're looking at the workloads, the apps, the API, device security. What about my operational technology? Most of us don't even think about that unless we're the admin, the network admin that's put in all of this architecture to make everything talk to each other. Do you realize how old that technology is? 50 plus years old. Think about that. We've got all these modern tools, but that infrastructure, that operational technology is over 50 years old. How do we secure that? We patch it, we update the OS, we get more modern. But again, the technology is still the same. Now we have the Internet of Things, all of that. We want to increase security and productivity at the same time. Looking at zero trust, what's the foundation of this? It's an architecture model that institutes deny until verified approach for access to resources from both inside and outside the network. The approach addresses challenges associated with shifting security perimeter in a cloud-centric and mobile workforce era. The core principle of zero trust is maintaining strict access control. This concept is critical to preventing attackers from pivoting laterally and elevating access within an environment. Now, cool thing about it is, it's not always the people who have been in this business the longest that are actually the smartest. This concept was a master's thesis by a college student. And it was picked up by Forrester, and Forrester ran with it and framed it and did all of that stuff because it was a good idea. The implementation for this has also been adopted by the federal government. It was announced on January 27th of this year that the federal government has 2 years. They have to be compliant with zero trust by the end of 2024. Anybody who has done anything in the federal government realizes this is really fast. I spent 4 years in the Middle East. I ordered 4 EMC squared SANs, high-powered SAN devices for some infrastructure. 2 years after I left the Middle East, my EMC rep contacted me and said they're finally being installed. 6 years after I bought them. So this is fast. But zero trust is based on verify explicitly 3 principles. Always authenticate and authorize based on all available data points. Least privileged access. Limit user access with just in time and just enough access to do what they need to. Always assume breach. This is where you're going to minimize your blast radius for anything that goes bad. Prevent lateral movement by segmenting access to user, device, network, apps, data, whatever it might be. So, we all understand really verify who somebody is, an identity, whatever. What about least privileged access? So, there is an option for setting up a process where people have to request access. I may be a domain admin and I can do whatever I want, but should I? Should I use those credentials all the time? No, go through the process. Hey, Tom, I need to make a change. Here's why. And then have him approve it. At least there's an audit trail that he approved my access to make that change. All built into the cloud. Assume breach. The majority of us, no matter what, have heard the only secure system is the one that's still in the box and has never been plugged in. Are you sure that box is secure? Do you know specifically the person who built it and everything they installed? No, you don't. You bought it from Dell or HP or whatever, IBM. You don't know who built it. You don't know what they installed. So I assume the box has been breached. So every time I buy a system, first thing I do, wax the operating system and start over with just the things that I want installed. Now I know what's on it. Looking at a zero trust product map. This is how Microsoft maps to those pillars. There are 6 pillars of zero trust. We at Talon say there's 7th, and I'm going to talk about that. There's 7th pillar I'm going to talk about. But there's identity, devices, data, apps, infrastructure, and network. Those are the 6 pillars defined by Microsoft. So, what's the 7th pillar? Right here, policy. Policy drives security. It's a cornerstone of security. In the absence of any direction from anybody in my company as a security person, I can read the organizational policy. And I can say, okay, I need to do this. I need to monitor this. I need to secure that. I need to go slap, somebody upside the back of the head for violating a policy and say, don't do that again. There's also policy in Azure. I can translate this policy and create my own custom policy to enforce what my organization says needs to be enforced. But there's also all sorts of other policies. PCI, GLBA. What is it I need to secure? This gives me that I can enforce it on my architecture. I have Defender for Cloud, Defender for Endpoint, Intune for my inventory, Defender for O365, SQL, which has a vulnerability assessment tool in that Defender for Server product, Defender for App, Defender for Cloud with just-in-time registration. So this is what I was talking about. I only need access for a specified amount of time. Otherwise, block my access. Adaptive network hardening with Azure Defender. Now, what about monitoring? Analytics. I could use Sentinel. This is all in a single ecosystem. Now, I know a lot of you are probably, or at least some of you, are probably like where I came from. I would never trust Microsoft to secure my infrastructure. You know what? That methodology doesn't work anymore because they are very good at what they do. And their products have come a long way because I used to be one of those people. And I've done a lot of research and all of this and analysis. And these are some of the best products in their space. Look at Gartner, where they rate. Now, zero trust. How do I get there? How long will it take me? You have to remember, zero trust is a journey. It's not really an end state because we're always going to be adjusting based on new threats, new techniques, all of that, new products. But I always like to say, we all start at some point. I'm picking identity. I'm starting with identity. Why? Because it's one of the largest attack surfaces. How long will it take me to secure all 6 pillars? 7 if you count policy. Well, are you one of those people who have 10 other jobs? Because it's going to take longer. Because you can't spend the time only doing this. But if this were Mark's only job, going through all the policies, all the pillars, and making sure everything was secure, it would take me significantly less time. I could probably do this faster than the federal government in 2 years. I could probably do it in a year, maybe, or less, because it's my only job. I bring this up because this is where people get frustrated. And I don't want you to get frustrated. I want you to be successful. So you have to understand the things within your control and the things not in your control. We all fight daily fires. Keep this in mind on your journey because zero trust is important. It's a different methodology. It's not a product or any of that. It's a framework. So let's talk about Azure. Let's talk about that cloud. Believe it or not, Azure is the only cloud platform built by a security vendor. Again, I just mentioned the fact that most people had always looked, or a majority of X guys like me had really never thought of Microsoft as a security vendor, but they are, and they do a good job. I have a lot of friends who work there. Microsoft earns over $10 billion a year in security business revenue. That's a lot of money. And it's a security vendor building Azure. Google can't say that. AWS can't say that. There are more than 400,000 Azure customers. 90 of the Fortune 100 companies use Microsoft security solutions. There are over 3,700 security experts at Microsoft. And again, I know several, and I know those people are experts. They spend over $1 billion annually on security. They've committed to over $5 billion over the next 5 years. In 2020, 6 billion malware threats were blocked by Defender. That's a lot. When you think about that, the other thing is there's threat intelligence built into their tools. How many vendors can say they have AI, threat intel, and all of that built into their tool? I know there are some, but not all. They take in over 8 trillion signals every 24 hours. Somebody has to look at this data. When I worked for a different company, I affectionately called these people my propeller heads. God bless them all. They can analyze, reverse engineer malware, and do all of that research. It's not what I would like to do, but I admire the job they do, because this threat intelligence is important for any product, because it's going to tell me these guys are on a spammer list. It's going to tell me this is a bad, file, all of those things, determining the hashes. Like any security company, Microsoft has researchers, and that's all they do to make sure this threat intel is being looked at, examined, and published to their products, so that that's built in by design. Now, let's look at a kill chain model. Looking at a kill chain, hopefully everybody knows what a kill chain is, right? There's Lockheed methodology. You can look at MITRE framework. There's one around analysis called the pyramid of pain. All of those things come into this. We have to look at what the bad guys are trying to do. So how are they going to access my stuff? Well, first of all, what's exposed? They're going to look for exposure, insecurely configured applications, vulnerabilities you have not patched. And that includes rebooting the box so the patch takes effect. Yesterday was Patch Tuesday. I had to reboot my box this morning. If I don't reboot my server, those vulnerabilities are not patched. I have an infected admin account or something that has admin privileges. Then they're going to look for access. What can they access, and how are they going to access it? A virtual machine, a web app. Did they get credentials? This is going to make it easy for them. Is somebody trying to brute force me? Okay. What if it's SSH on a Linux box? Username, password instead of public key, private key authentication. I've just made it easier for them because I'm using a username, password for the root account instead of a public key, private key authentication. The Internet of Things devices, all those things that are out there that they can try to exploit. If you haven't been keeping up with the news, many times we don't control the smartphones our users use. And they're downloading banking applications and all of those other things. They're downloading all sorts of stuff on their phone that have TrickBot installed, that have all sorts of other nasty things installed that can be used to access my network. Not what I want. Okay, so what are they going to do once they get on my network? Lateral movement. I want to escalate my privileges. I want to sniff and see what other people are doing and see if those credentials have access. Then I can steal those. Now I'm on the web app, on the database, on the virtual machine. I started here and I moved to this one. Then maybe I move to the database. What's their intent? What are the actions that are going to take place? Do they just not like us and they want to wipe all the data off? Or do they want to steal the data? Data exfiltration. There are currently a number of ransomware attacks in the wild that they're going to say, pay me, but they have no intention of releasing your data. They're going to give you the key. The minute you use the key, you have to reboot the box to unlock everything. The minute you do that, it wipes out the whole device, server, client, whatever it is. But they just don't want you to have anything. They just want their money. They're just malicious. Or data exfiltration. You've been keeping up with the news. Samsung was breached. NVIDIA was breached. And they're threatening to release all that code, all that data, all those user IDs, passwords, unless they get paid. And you still don't know if they're not going to release that. Defender for Cloud. Why most of you came here, right? So let's talk about Defender for Cloud. You can use it in a multi-cloud security posture. You're going to see secure score, so you know how secure you are based on metrics, policies, compliance. We can improve things with automation. I can protect, with Defender for Cloud, I can protect hybrid cloud. So I can use it, databases, storage, Internet of Things. I can also use it in multi-cloud. I could deploy that if I have Azure, AWS, and Google Cloud. I could deploy this in all three clouds. I can deploy it to on-prem. So I can see everything in a single pane of glass, in a single ecosystem. Now, how do I do that? How do I protect everything? There's a tool called Azure Arc. The agent is free. I can deploy that agent and I can manage all my systems like they exist in Azure. I don't have to keep bouncing around console to console. Now, looking at the big picture for Defender for Cloud, where does it play? What does it do? So we're looking at Azure VMs, data and storage, Key Vault, all of that native to Azure, Azure AD. But we're also looking at policies, integrated threat intel. This is all being brought in. This threat intel from those 8 trillion signals every 24 hours into the product, so that it sees everything that's latest and greatest IOC, indicator of compromise. In that dashboard, I can see my firewalls based on partnerships, depending on the firewalls we use, SQL Advanced Threat Protection, Storage Advanced Threat Protection, network security groups. I can jump over to my on-prem and I can deploy it on-prem, and all of this is going to come into that cloud dashboard. We have behavioral analytics there, anomaly detection. It's a dashboard-driven system that I can see everything. How do I know it's an anomaly? Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm getting threat intel. How do I know it's a bad IP? I'm getting threat intel. All of those things in a single pane of glass, in a single ecosystem. Again, Defender for Cloud is a tool for security posture management and threat protection and detection. It's dashboard driven. It's going to strengthen the posture of your cloud resources. Best of all, it's integrated. It has plans built in. You can turn on and off specific pieces that you want deployed. It protects workloads running in Azure Hybrid and other cloud platforms. Again, using Azure Arc, I can deploy this to everything and enforce all of that on all those resources, whether they're in Azure specifically or not. It's a tool that can help you harden your resources, track your security posture. Okay, so when we talk about tracking posture, really what does that mean? Well, how did I look last month compared to this month? I was at 30% last month. I'm at 40% this month. I went up. One of the things I always tell people about dashboard-driven systems and the ability to see posture. It's not uncommon for our boss or our boss's boss, boss's boss's boss to come over and say, hey, show me what that thing is. What's it doing for us that I wrote $1 million check? If your answer is, how long do you think you're going to have your tool? But if I can say, last month, we were 30 or 10% less secure than we are this month, and I can show them that, I've just showed him the buzzword that all executives want to hear, ROI, return on investment. And that's what they care about. They wrote the check so that we could do our job better and protect them better. Protect against cyber attacks. Streamline security management. It fills 3 vital roles. It continually assesses the security posture, identity, track vulnerabilities, all of that. It gives me a dashboard system where I can look and I can say, I need to fix X, Y, and Z to harden this box. You get a policy, Azure Security Benchmark, and it defends. Threat detection, threat remediation, threat blocking on resources, workloads, and services. So, continuous assessment, understand your posture. Secure Score does this for me. Single glance, I know how secure my environment is, benched across CVEs, patches, policy, all of that. The higher the score, the lower the risk. And that's where I want to be. You should try to get a score of at least 70 to 80%. Who thinks they'd reach that? Really? It seems pretty easy. But I can tell you, myself and my team, we do a lot of assessments. That score is nowhere near that in most environments we go in. Harden all connected resources and services. Customize, prioritized hardening tasks that it lists for you so that you can say, I need to fix this. It gives you instructions. And in many cases, it gives you a fix button. Just like the commercial. Punch the button and everything's all good. I would never do this without reading first and talking to people to see if I'm going to break something by enforcing that fix. But it can be a quick fix. Just punch the button, the easy button. Defend and resolve threats. Security alerts. Defender's going to detect if something bad was happening. It's going to alert you. It's going to tell you what it did. Hey, I blocked this. These logs can be sent to other things, such as a SOAR platform. It can email. You can do all sorts of automation to let people know something happened in your environment. So as I said, it's dashboard driven. So we see here, I've got 73 subscriptions, 4 AWS accounts, 4 GCP projects, 5,984 assessed resources, 209 active recommendations, and 7,336 alerts. I can see my score. I'm at 54%. I'm not where I should be, not where I'd hope to be. Workload protection. Regulatory compliance. How compliant am I with the standards that I've set on our environment? My firewalls, how do they look? Inventory. What does my inventory look like? What are the things I should be looking at? Information protection. This is a product called Purview. I scan it. I can see insights, relevant recommendations to fix. My security alerts. I can examine all from a single pane of glass to see what my network looks like. It's security posture management across everything that it can see, that it's deployed to. You're going to gain insight into the state of your security of your cloud workloads. You're going to be able to address vulnerabilities with prioritized remediations. You're going to be able to improve that score and show your bosses how it improved in minutes. I don't have to do a deep dive. Microsoft's already done that for me with a tool. Speed up that regulatory compliance. Any of us knows how difficult this can be if you've faced any regulatory compliance. It's granular. I have granular control. Do I have to fix it? Maybe I fixed it with a third party. I can just say, I've remediated it through a third party. So I look at my score. Remember, we want to be 70 to 80% at least. We're only at 54. Means I have some work to do, right? How do I get those points to go up? I can drill into it. 27 to 58 points. I look at my subscriptions. Who's doing the best? See, India here, 61%. That's awesome. And I can view all the recommendations so that I can get that score to go up. Now, the thing about the score is you have to fix it all, every single point, or you don't get any points. So if I have 12 servers that each require patches, I have to fix all 12. Otherwise, I'm not getting the points. So you can see here, categories, all the different controls, remediate vulnerabilities, enable encryption at rest. Things that we should be doing. I have 56 of 59 resources that I need to remediate vulnerabilities. Maybe I just didn't reboot all the boxes yet. But I need to examine those, and I need to fix all 56 of these, or I'm not going to get these 6 points. But 6 points, I'd be much higher, and that's what we want. I can look at my regulatory compliance. Whatever policies I enforce in Azure policy are going to be shown here. I want to demonstrate I'm compliant with what my bosses have told me I need to be compliant with. I can monitor multiple cloud, remember, by deploying Azure Arc. And I can enforce my policy on anything in any cloud and even on-prem with Azure Arc. So I can make sure all my resources abide by the policy I've set out. The security benchmark tool, again, monitoring fully aligned with the secure score so I can bring my compliance up. I can bring my score up. Multiple common industry standards are supported. There's a ton of out-of-the-box policies, initiatives that you can use. Again, I can get my status. Regulatory compliance. What am I not compliant with? Show me the resources. What do I need to do to make that? Managed identity should be used in your app. Okay, so I need to go talk to the app developers, figure out what they're doing, and see if we can't get a managed identity for those apps. Service principals should be used to protect your subscription instead of a managed certificate. Why is this so important? Okay, what if you don't understand that? Drill into it, read it. But this means anybody with a certificate can manage my subscription. So if somebody gets my cert, they can manage my subscription. So I want to go to an identity, a service principal, so that if they steal my cert, they're not being authenticated to my subscription. I'm looking at my policies. SOC TSP, I'm not doing well. PCI, I've got a long way to go. Doing pretty good in ISO. But these are things we want to fix. Out of the box. Again, every subscription gets the benchmark policy based on NIST 853, not the full NIST 53, but subsections of it, plus some Microsoft best practice thrown in there to get you started. I always tell people, secure this policy first. Then apply another policy. The whole idea, think of this as a pilot. I want to fix the things this policy is broken, so hopefully this policy I'm in better standing with when I deploy it, because I fixed all these things here. CMMC, Azure CIS, all of these things, and there are a multitude of other policies you can use. What about my firewall? Using Azure Firewall, using a partner firewall that it recognizes. I can see what my coverage is by clicking on the dashboard. 67 hubs protected by security partner provider right here. But the majority, no Azure Firewall deployed. It's about a little less than the majority. But then I see protected by Azure Firewall. Virtual networks coverage. No firewall deployed on these virtual networks. Protected by DDoS. Okay, so you have DDoS native fabric protection. But there is a plan for standard. That protects you specifically as the customer, only your environment. Worth the $2,944, I think, is what it costs per month. But it's worth it, especially now that ransom people have started using it as ransomware. I'm going to continually DDoS you until you pay me. DDoS attacks can be extremely destructive because nobody can get in. And if they're not getting to your portal, they'll go shop somewhere else. If you've got an online shop presence, they'll go somewhere else. I don't know about you, but if a web page takes too long, I move on. Just think about that. Improved visibility of everything. My inventory. A single view, all monitored resources. Easy filtering, sorting, cross-referencing. I can download it. I can use Azure Graph. Managing all my resources in a single place. So, Defender for Cloud is going to analyze the security state of your resources periodically to identify potential vulnerabilities. Then provides you the recommendations that you need to remediate. You didn't have to go look. You didn't have to go dig down. It did it for you. When any resource has any outstanding recommendations, they're going to appear in that inventory. I'm going to see my total resources connected, unhealthy resources, unmonitored. Oh, hey, look, they don't have the log analytics agent. Why not? I want to see those logs. I want to know it's healthy. It's monitored. Unregistered subscriptions. Subscriptions that aren't in the scope. Why aren't they? What are they being used for? How else are they being protected? Things that should go, bump in the night. Everything should be secure. But you can see here, total, unhealthy, unmonitored, unregistered. I can filter all of this for specifically what I want to see. I can add non-Azure servers, open a query, download it. I can see guides, feedback on the fly, help in the menu, all in a single pane of glass. So you can see here just how powerful this filter is. We had a tag that said production. And we went through and we just filtered a monitoring agent. And we said, hey, what's not installed? We can change these filters and search for anything and everything. And this is based on tags. You should be tagging your resources. They're a valuable tool within Azure. And I can filter down to exactly what I need to see. One resource, it's unhealthy, all by doing filters. Purview, information protection. I can drill into this and I can see all of my systems. What are they? All the different tags. I can see this is an endpoint. It has a medium risk. I can see there are credit card numbers, EUs, social security numbers, all of these different things. The regulations they're violating. GDPR, confidential, all the different categories. But you have to install Purview for this to work. It's all about that data discovery, information protection, applying tags, good platform for DLP, understanding what's going on. Now, I mentioned this earlier, quick fix. We all want an easy button. We all want our jobs to be easier. And this is kind of that easy button. Now, I would never tell you just simply click this button and let it do what it does without reading. I want to understand what it's going to fix. I need to understand that. I need to know that I might need to go talk to somebody to find out why this wasn't installed, why it's configured the way it is. Can I fix it without breaking the application or the server or whatever it might be? Do I need to put in an exception for this? One resource. Nothing happens in a vacuum. We need to talk to people. We need to understand. Nobody knows everything about everything. But it's good to know everyone who does know everything, because then you can talk to them. You can find out why they didn't do whatever this thing is telling you to fix. Maybe there's a valid reason. Maybe there's not. Maybe you need to get them to sign a document that says you accept the risk. I don't want it on me. I think you should fix this. Sign here if you don't want to fix it, and I'll file that away if we get breached. So I can prove it's your fault. CYA, right? Cover your asset. These are the things that I tell everybody. But it's nice to have this quick fix lightning bolt. And I can fix them all in one shot. And you'll see here, they're listed right here. So I can just click it and fix it. Should I, though? That's the question. These are the things you have to know in your own environment. Maybe you control all of it and you just forgot. Okay, great, fix it. Maybe you're not going to break anything. But I'd verify that first. But I see all the recommendations from a single pane of glass in Security Center, all from Defender for Cloud. All I have to do is click that fix button, tell it what resources I want it to fix, and then click remediate. 3 resources. Boom, all done. Make sure it works. Verify. It's going to take an hour or so for it to update. I always tell people at least 24 hours, but should happen within an hour. Now, multi-cloud support. This is what I've been talking about. Azure Arc is an agent. It allows you to deploy to non-Azure resources so that you can manage them, and they look like they're in Azure from a single pane of glass. Azure Arc for servers, so that you can manage all your servers, no matter where they exist, on-prem, in a different cloud. Azure for Kubernetes applications. Run data services anywhere. You go into your Azure environment and look up Arc. You can go in there and you can see I could deploy to multiple servers in one shot. I don't have to do them one at a time. I can get an inventory and say, these are the ones I want. Again, now, if I deploy Azure Arc, I'm now going to see, in this case, my on-prem, Amazon, and Google in my secure score, in my threat detection. I can then automate things, all because I installed this Arc agent. So now, not only am I seeing my cloud secure score, I'm seeing all my clouds and my on-prem. I can manage all those assets. I can enforce all the policy that I just spent my life tuning and making sure that Azure was in compliance with everything my bosses told me it had to be. I can enforce all this policy, all these resources. They will all look the same now, no matter where they exist. My server protection, Defender for VMs. I can do threat detection. I'm going to have a Qualys-powered scanner built in at no cost to scan these devices. I can then do automation at scale, workflow automation, all of that. If I integrate a SIEM, I can send all these logs from all these systems to the SIEM. That would be a Sentinel, because if I use Sentinel, it's in the same ecosystem. So it already knows how to communicate to all these log analytics. I can export that data to a different one if I have a different one. But again, I'm managing all of this in a single ecosystem with a leading provider of security tools. Again, it's across all of those. So you can see in my instance, I have 73 subscriptions. I have 4 AWS, 4 Google. These are all going to come in. I'm going to see them all. And that's what we've done here. They're all reporting in here. I can see my inventory. I can see every one of these systems and everything that's broken. What do I need to fix? One single dashboard. I didn't have to go anywhere. I just click. It's nice to be a clickologist, right? I just have to click. Click a quick fix button, click a panel, and I can see everything. And that's what we want. We want our jobs to be easy. Work smarter, not harder. And that's what most of us want, because we have 9 million other things that we have to do. We have all these different jobs in this day and age that we're all doing multiple things, putting out fires, all of those things. And we need something to be easy. And this is easy compared to everything else we've been doing. And as I mentioned, integrated threat protection, all in a single ecosystem, extended detection and response with Defender. all email, Defender 365, Defender for cloud, all my IoT, SQL servers, apps, identities, and then I could just spool it into Sentinel. Sentinel's got over 200 pre-built rules. All I have to do is turn them on. Has connectors to understand how to do all of these. All I have to do, turn them on. Now, I can also take third party. Set up a log feed. All with my multi-cloud. Because I'm using Arc, these guys are going to come in anyway. They're going to be part of this ecosystem. Now, do I have to change screens? Yeah, I have to change screens. Not one single dashboard, but Defender for Cloud is. I may not see Sentinel in that dashboard. I might have to, got to click somewhere else. But I could just open a new tab and do that. It's comprehensive threat protection for Azure itself and your hybrid workloads. Again, we're extending the protection by using Arc. Any server, Azure VMs, SQL in Azure, Postgres, MySQL, Maria, the Internet of Things, DNS, Azure management. But the big thing here, we've got network at layer 1 and, oh yeah, the key vault. You need to protect that key vault. Something has to tell you if it's not configured properly. How do you know that? Well, I can tell you we do assessments. And I see a lot of key vaults that are actually public network accessible. There's no reason in the world that your keys should be accessible from a public network. Because if I get these keys as a bad actor, I own you. I can use those keys on all your apps or whatever they're being used for, I will have access to. This is the keys to the kingdom. And all of this protected by Defender for Cloud. Workload protections. So we're running all sorts of things in our cloud environment, right? We have all these different VMs doing all these different things. Everything is busy. We're busy. But what's going to tell me what I need to fix? I can come into workload. I can see my security, prioritize security alerts. I can see insights on threat alerts. What are my insights? What are the things I'm looking for? Most prevalent security alerts, most attacked resources. Why are they attacking these resources? What's special about them? Go take a look. But I can see all my servers, my Kubernetes, my container registries, my app services. Look at this. Key Vault telling me I need to upgrade. All of these telling me there's an upgrade available. Upgrade them all. Boom, one shot. My databases, storage accounts, all of that. I'm looking at my risks, all my security alerts, all my advanced protection, showing me things that are unprotected. I'm not fully utilizing my product. That's what it's telling me right now. I've got all this protection that I could deploy and I'm not using it. Why? But these are insights. If I have specific devices, apps, whatever it might be, a resource being attacked, what is so special about this that everybody wants to hammer away? 2225, 2054. What is special about this box? What does it host? I can drill into it and I can certainly find out what's on it, what makes it a target. What can I do to protect that box better? Maybe my policy isn't, my network security group, whatever it might be, is not configured strict enough to prevent those packets from reaching it. but I certainly want to know as a security guy. Defender for servers. Protect your Linux and Windows servers from threats. Reduce the open ports. I used to write hardening documentation. Let a server do what it's supposed to do, and only the ports that it requires to do what it is supposed to do should be open. Nothing else. Use just in time and just enough. I open a port only if I need to access it. So basically, SSH is not open on my Linux box unless I need to log into it to do something. Makes sense to me. I don't know about you guys, but it makes a lot of sense to me. Limit those open ports with adaptive network hardening. We're looking at anti-malware, behavior analytics, allow lists for your apps. We're trying to prevent lateral movement, data exfiltration, block malware with those adaptive application controls. Protect your servers, your endpoints, all of that. Harden the boxes. Just because I have access to this doesn't mean I should all the time. Close the ports, reduce the attack surface. Turn on built-in vulnerability assessment for your VMs. It's available as part of Defender for servers. It has the Qualys scanner built in. You don't pay for it. It's part of the product. It will continuously scan all the installed applications and find the vulnerabilities for you. Look at what's here, the severity. What's it apply to? What resources? It shows me everything that I should fix to secure my box. Seems pretty no-brainer to me. Why should I buy a scanner to scan my box when one is built in to scan my box? Okay, I'm all for redundancy, but do I need to be that redundant and pay more money? I mean, there's certainly an argument for trusted and untrusted scanners. Okay, well, this is built in, so this is my trusted scanner. So maybe I do deploy an untrusted scanner to see if all the millions of dollars worth of tools that I bought are preventing like they should. But again, this is built in. Show me what I should fix. And it continuously assesses it. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to fire up a scanner. I don't have to pick the boxes. It's doing it automatically for me and letting me know if I passed, failed, and what I need to fix. Defender for SQL. Anywhere, in Azure, on-prem, in other clouds. Again, advanced threat protection, protecting all my SQL, Azure Synapse, managed instances, Azure VM SQL servers, the database, on-prem, AWS, Google Cloud, it's all there. Deploy Arc, deploy your product. And I can protect it. And I can see it more. That's the big thing. It's not just out there running and I can't see it. No, it's going to bring it into Azure, into a single ecosystem, into a single dashboard that I can use to evaluate my environment. Defender for storage. So I'm doing storage. I'm storing all these files, right? Blob containers, file shares, data lakes. I'm doing it all. How do I protect that? Well, you have Defender for storage. Make sure this attacker can't get in there. What else do I have? Oh yeah, I have Azure Policy. Azure Policy, Defender sees Azure Policy because it applies to both Defender and at the upper level, both the same policy. It's going to tell me, hey, you should be using private links instead of public. Nobody should have access to that. Change it. Follow your policy suggestions. But I also want protection. I want to see those logs. I can feed all those logs into Sentinel, single ecosystem. I can detect it. I can remediate it. If I don't see it, what am I going to do? That is the whole, I don't know what I don't know, so I need to know it, and how do I get it scenario. We hear that a lot. I need to know what I don't know. Well, how do you not know? Because I'm not getting the logs, I'm not looking at the logs, all of that. I'm not evaluating my policy. I didn't even know that existed. I've heard that before. But Defender is going to show you that. Even if I never look at Azure policy, Defender sees the policy. I just have to go to the Defender dashboard. It's a seamless deployment. We can do Defender for container registries. It scans that image. It's going to discover all the ACR registries, scan all the pushed images, get visibility to vulnerable images. It's going to scan it at runtime. And it uses dynamic analysis versus static analysis. So it's looking at all of that as a single file and everything that it's doing. Anybody that understands sandboxes knows what that means. It means that it's looking at the code. How is it going to be executed? All of that, and saying, yeah, that's bad, because that's an exploit. Instead of just looking at bits and pieces, scans it as a whole. What is this going to do? Totally. Not just bits and pieces of it. It's a valuable tool, especially if you're getting images from somewhere else. Defender for Kubernetes, the de facto standard these days for containers. It's going to help you harden and audit your Kubernetes clusters according to the benchmarks that you've deployed, your policies you've deployed, and follow the Docker CIS benchmark on container nodes. It's going to have runtime threat protection. So it's going to be able to detect suspicious behavior in your workloads using that agentless approach, leveraging the audit log, in addition to the Kubernetes workers dedicated to detections. Admission control for policy management. It's going to mandate audit security best practices on your Kubernetes workloads, all built in, single ecosystem, single platform. Just have to deploy that piece. So when you look at Kubernetes, I'm not going to go through all of these, you all can read, but you can see some of the things that it looks at. Initial access, cloud credentials, compromised images in the registry, your config file, exposed dashboard, application vulnerability. And again, they're still going to try to do the same things: execution, persistence, privilege escalation, defense evasion. So they're going to try to delete some events, connect from a proxy server. They want credential access. They're going to look for container service accounts, application credentials in those files, those config files. Again, all comes down to, what are they trying to do? Hijack your resource? Denial of service? Just destroy the data? But again, you can get this. The Microsoft freely published article, show you the whole attack matrix. What are they going to try to do, so that you can understand the methodology of that bad actor when it comes to a Kubernetes container registry. Again, breadth of threat protection with the cloud. I can protect with Defender for Cloud any workload in Azure. I talked about these. Defender for your resource manager. It's going to monitor all resource management operations in your organization. Detect any suspicious behavior and send alerts. Defender for DNS monitors all those queries, sends alert if there's suspicious activity. Hey, somebody looked for XYZ and it actually didn't come back the way we thought it should. Can't stress this one enough. Defender for Key Vault. You need to protect this with every resource that you can. If you're using this Key Vault, most people do, you need to protect those keys. I get these keys as a bad actor. I can access whatever I want. Whatever those keys go to, I can access. And then I can start my whole methodology of moving laterally, escalating privileges, and doing anything and everything I want to do. Nobody wants that, not from a security perspective. Defender for the Internet of Things. I get my asset inventory. It's an auto discover. It's a visual map. All the details, MAC address, manufacturer, protocols, etc. Vulnerability management, so I can see CVEs, open ports, unauthorized connections, threat detections. It's going to leverage that machine learning and IoT aware behavioral analytics to immediately identify a threat. Fileless malware, going to be based on anomalous or unauthorized activities. Sentinel. Sentinel's your SIM. Log aggregation, correlation. So I can take seemingly disparate traffic and make it relevant to say, yep, I saw A, B, and C, and from the article I read about this piece of malware, that's definitely that piece of malware or that threat or whatever it might be. And it's seamless integration. Now, one of the last things I want to cover is the total economic impact. This says Azure Security Center. Again, this article was written a couple of years ago. Then they changed the product name to Defender for Cloud. Used to be Azure Defender. So I leave this because this study is still very, very valid. Now, if Gina would be so kind, she could post it in the chat so you could download it, the full study. Now, I don't know about all of you. I'm not an accountant. I understand return on investment. I understand numbers, but this net present value versus the benefits present value versus the payback over time, all of that, yeah, that's an accounting stuff. I'm not an accountant. I'm an information security guy. What I care about are the numbers over here on the right. Azure Security Center cost benefit savings and business benefits. 25% reduction in risk of a breach. Okay, I'm all in on that. You just took a quarter of my worry away. I'm all about that. Because I can automate all of this. I can make my job easier. 50% reduction in time to threat mitigation. I don't know if any of you have ever been an analyst and had to go down the rabbit hole for 8 hours investigating something or more, only to find out that's 8 hours of your day you're never going to get back for a false positive. So if I can detect something in 50% less time to mitigate a threat, as a security guy, I'm all over that. 30% reduction in policy and compliance management time. Again, time I will never get back by manually doing a bunch of stuff. Instead of just going to Defender for Cloud, looking at the recommended remediation tasks where I didn't have to go look and say, oh, hey, look, George forgot to do this on this server, but I spent 6 hours trying to figure out what he forgot to do. Now, my bosses will be all over this one. $216,000 annual reduction in security tools spent. So I don't have to ask my boss for this $216,000 that I would have needed to buy another tool to do what this does. So think about it from a project perspective. When I can say I came under by $216,000, I came under budget. That should make my boss happy. But you can see there's a 6-month payback period for your investment. That's not bad. It cost $1.1 million, but the benefit was $3.6 million, with a net present value $2.44 million. I'm not an accountant. Those are numbers. But there is a full study on how Defender for Cloud, even though they changed the name last year, this is what I care about as a security person, especially these first 3. I care about this because I can use this money, hopefully my boss will let me, for something else. Maybe there's another project. But when I can reduce the time and cost of investigating a breach, identifying it quicker, thereby reducing lateral movement, data exfiltration, and all of that, not only have I saved the company money from this and my time, I've saved the company, hopefully, from a very embarrassing press release called the mandatory reporting law. So again, I highly recommend you just kind of look at this. If you're not a numbers guy like me and you're security tech head like me, this makes a lot of sense. Just from the fact that I don't have to manage 8 different consoles. I'm in a single ecosystem where I can see everything. Again, we at Talon, we actually offer a security assessment. We deliver workshops to educate you, to educate us. It's all about discovery. We'll go through scope and objectives, cloud adoption framework, so you can see how a secure framework should be built for your cloud landing zone. We'll go through a whole presentation on the Zero Trust framework. We'll go through Defender for Cloud in much more detail than it is here. We'll go through and assess your environment, look at all your policies. We'll look at 365, we'll look at policy, we'll look at your landing zone, we'll look at all of those, we'll analyze, we'll give you a prioritized remediation list, what you need to fix. We'll even give you a proposal. That's what you want. We'll fix the highs, you do everything else, or we'll fix it all. Whatever works for you, we'll give you those recommendations. Depending, Microsoft might even pay for this for you. So it might even be free. But we're still willing to do the work and help you out. Okay. I want to thank all of you for your time. I know we're all busy, but if you have any questions, any comments, please put them in the chat. You can reach out to us. But I want to thank all of you for your time and attention today, and I hope you found it educational. I hope you found it worth being here for.